Previously on
Just waiting for our phone to connect through to London.
Here we go.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, gee, that was quick, Sam. Sorry, we didn't know you'd answered the phone already. Good afternoon. Welcome. It's Balls Radio again. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
How are you doing this
I'm
afternoon?
still in the car, but hopefully, yes, I'm fine. Hopefully, there's not going to be a break.
All right, cool.
It shouldn't be a break. I'm fine.
We'll see how we go. Thanks a lot for chatting to us short notice this afternoon. What's London? Are you still in London, obviously, right?
Yes, we are still in London, yeah. The team is gagged. Of course, members of the team who have finished competing have left last week, but the rest are leaving tonight. But I have meetings and other issues to wind up here, so I leave tomorrow night.
All right, so still another day or two. London must be very quiet by comparison to the last 2 weeks.
Not really. We've just come from the village area now. It's still rather hectic, although all the athletes are getting ready to go home.
Yeah. All right. Now, in hindsight, obviously, now that the Olympics are over, and it was really exciting, watching right up until yesterday with our guys in the marathon. Obviously, Castor over the weekend, and then that fabulous performance from Barry Stander in the mountain bike, which I thought was one of our best performances of the whole games. What's the general feeling there with the team? I know the target set of how many do the teams went?
The feeling was extraordinarily positive, because our three pick up our jacket. Because they were all gold, the feeling was superb, and the Minister of Sport was with us, and he seemed to be satisfied. We didn't want any more, but of course afterwards we got two, as you know, we have 2 silvers and 1 bronze.
Yeah. Obviously, the feeling here, and a lot of discussion going on social media and all over about, post games, we never reached the 12 target. I don't think in that 12 though it was specified how many golds. So, obviously those golds are an absolute bonus for us and probably make up for that. But now, obviously, the talk is focus 2016 Rio, because we did leave some medals behind, and I think in terms of Barry Stander got off to a bad start in his event. Sunette Viljoen also just didn't seem to be relaxed in her event. So we do have the athletes, they know what they're doing, they are at the top of their game, but there's a feeling that now from a sort of a point of view from government all the way down through SASCOC and the federations, that we need to start now to actually try and put the kind of resources in place to make sure that everyone has the best possible chance to medal. Do you agree?
That is our target, but not only putting the resources together, because I've spoken to very many National Olympic Committees here, very many governments here, and also funding agents. The important thing is not only to provide adequate funding, but make sure that the funding is used and utilized appropriately. And that, I think, is an issue that we need to tackle when we get back home. Funding on its own is not necessarily the solution, but the utilizing of the funds in an appropriate way, in an intelligent way, and in a way that is targeted towards high performance achievement is the important thing.
Because we've seen the success and athletes on the podium, obviously, as was mentioned a little earlier on. These are people that have had the best possible access and backing with high performance support in South Africa, and also obviously the opportunity to compete overseas against the best. But that seems to have been the way that we managed to get athletes onto the podium at this games.
That's true, but then we need fine tuning. Because we need to see and examine certain sports and certain athletes, why they didn't perform as anticipated. Not necessarily winning medals, but why haven't they performed in getting to the finals and the semi-finals. And that, I think, is an issue we need to look at and fine-tune our arrangement for Rio 16.
All right. Can you just clarify, Mr. Ramsamy, that point that you made about the funding being used appropriately and looking at how the funding is used? How would you classify it as inappropriate versus appropriately being used when we look towards Rio?
Yeah, it's difficult to say now. Obviously we will have to make an analysis and to check it, because at the moment, we are in the immediate post-games period. What we need to do now is to look at, if I might say, the briefing. Look at the briefing and see how the briefing will take us to where we want to go. And we can't do that now. And as I said, when I spoke to the people concerned, that I think is the important issue. And they felt that they made many of the senior officials I spoke, not from South Africa, but from other parts of the world. They said that I think is an issue. They generalized on it, and because they generalized on it, it is difficult for me to, at this early stage, to say where the fine-tuning needs to take place. Obviously, that needs to be done when we return home and make our analysis.
All right. I know you are on your way somewhere. Just one final question. I've been and obviously noticed at the last games, and obviously watching Sky particularly quite a lot in their news bulletins and how they have been handling the Team GB Olympic approach. Their campaign has been basically towards this game has been going for 8 years since they've known they're going to be hosting the Olympic Games, and they seem to have hit the mark right on the button as far as achieving success. 69 medals. I think they targeted 50 for these games. Do you look at their model and say we can use that in South Africa, and do you sort of borrow from other countries' models and say this is the way we should do it here?
There's two issues there. One is as the saying goes, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. The second issue is that we need to look at the peculiarities of South Africa in relation to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is largely a middle-class population, overwhelmingly middle-class. Now, we don't have a very large middle-class population. How are we going to utilize the population in the lower end of our population with the higher ends of the population? We need to look at that and how we can get an appropriate balance.
Yeah,
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'll give you a very good example. I'll give you a very good example. I'm not going to mention any names. We were giving one kid a subsidy for that kid to have enough nutrition, to have enough healthy diet. But then this kid said, look, I can't do that because what's going to happen to the rest of my family? Because my family needs to eat too. I can't eat all on my own special food that you're providing for me. I have to look after my family, and I can't do that in the presence of my family. Now, Britain doesn't have that problem. We have that issue. So and yet these athletes are top class athletes. How do we address that particular issue?
Absolutely. And how many more top class athletes potentially are in our country that we don't even know about yet? And that once again comes down to resources and using everything from our federations to our former athletes and sports people to actually hone, train, mentor, and get them into the spotlight so we can work with them and get them onto the international stage. I think a great example was in the mountain bike yesterday. I think he came second last, but there was the biker from Rwanda who I think got the biggest round of applause when he finished, and it's exactly that story. I mean, he came literally out of the jungles of Rwanda. Another athlete from another country spotted him, and they mentored him all the way to where he got to the Olympic Games. So I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's right. And also, for instance, as you said, the marathon runner who from the age of 17 decided to leave Uganda and spend most of his time in Kenya because they had the wonderful appropriate environment there. Exactly. And there he did all the Kenyan marathon runners, and he got a gold. So we need to look at it. We need to see how we can uplift not only the athletes, but uplift the population as a whole.
Absolutely.
And I believe that will also happen with, will certainly happen with looking for determined athletes, looking for athletes with a lot of aptitude.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Ramsamy, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much for joining us, as I say, at short notice, and for giving us some insight into the thinking ahead. Obviously, a lot of discussions and meetings to take place. Travel back safely when you do come back, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mr.
There we go. That's Sam Ramsamy joining us from London. There we go. It's it's the same, I think, with all our sports. Can you imagine how many in our country, how many talented rugby players, cricketers, footballers, athletes, Olympians that are potentially out there that we don't even know about yet? Again, it's resources. That's what everyone's saying. Get the appropriate resources out there. Get scouts out there. Let's find in our population all of these potential stars and give them the right backing and the right platform to be able to perform. Did you see the Rwandan guy?
No.
Came around and the crowd gave him a bigger cheer than any of the top three.
I saw the
when he came through. He's one of 7 members of the Rwandan team, and I think 6 of them were in some of the long distance athletics, if I'm not mistaken. He was in the mountain biking, and he was spotted by some guy, I think one of the European mountain bikers. And this guy basically funded his entire preparation from taking him out of the hills of Rwanda to eventually getting him to London for the Olympic Games.
I think it's the same. There was a 19-year-old from Kenya who was in the men's javelin. He did so well. He also got one of the biggest cheers ever because they understand where.
Those are great Olympic stories, like the Eric the Eel and Eddie the Eagle stories from the Olympic Games. Simon?
No, I was just thinking about what Sam Ramsamy said about funding and all that kind of stuff. But I look at the medals table. How does a country like Kazakhstan finish above us? They had 13 medals in total, 7 gold, 1 silver and 5 bronze.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can look at that and go, well, there are just some countries that are, although I mean they won a couple of athletics medals as well, they won a couple of firsts in areas they'd never won before, because generally Kazakhstan was post-Soviet Union. So Kazakhstan basically was in all the weightlifting and the wrestling and those kind of strength sports. So they're very strong in that area. Just because they're kind of a country they're the back end of the world doesn't necessarily mean they don't have top quality sportsmen in those particular fields.
Sure, but they must surely have the same kinds of challenges that we would have
in certain events. But in the weightlifting, I think just naturally they've always been strong in that area. What they would see as a success is the fact that they've spread that to other events as well. And that's exactly what he's talking about. That's what we need to do, is to be able to take our talent and put the resources behind them, give them the right support, give them the right mentoring, and get them ready for Rio in 4 years' time. And then we might also be up around the 20+ medals at Olympic Games.
We the best on 3. 1, 2, 3. We the best.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on balls.co.za. Balls.co.za.